Welcome back to the Deep Dive, the show built entirely around you, the learner. Our mission is to take your most complex source material, the articles, the research, the deep reading notes, and perform intellectual triage.
We extract the essential knowledge and those surprising insights that, really matter.
We guide you right past the information overload and straight into the core of understanding.
And today we are setting aside the textbooks and stepping into the literary heart of Prince Edward Island.
We are. We're doing an extensive deep dive into the world of L.A. Montgomery, focusing on the rich narrative structure and the world building of Anne's House of Dreams.
Right, and this isn't just about what happens next to Anne Shirley.
No, not at all. This source material gives us a stunning sociological study of a tight-knit maritime community. We're tracking Anne's profound transition
From beloved teacher in the safe harbor of Avonlea.
to a new resident, wife, and mother on the far side of the island. It's a huge shift for her.
Absolutely. But maybe even more compellingly, our sources let us meticulously analyze the thorny ethical and emotional dilemmas that Montgomery embeds right inside the story.
Dilemmas that really challenge our concepts of duty, truth, and compassion.
Exactly. And we have a fantastic stack of context today. Detailed character sketches, a full breakdown of the plot points, and really importantly, that crucial biographical context on the author that explains her enduring obsession with this specific geography.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We have to begin with the architect of this world, Lucy Maud Montgomery.
We do?
Born on PEI in 1874, and her early life was marked by loss, wasn't it? Her mother died young, and she was raised by her grandparents, who were strict but also very devoted.
That's right. And it becomes so clear why the island is more than just a setting for her.
It's the emotional landscape of her soul.
It is the grounding force. She often referred to it as the only island there is. And despite its, initial isolation, she found ways to pursue her passion for writing.
I mean, publishing her first poem when she was just 15 is incredible.
It really is. She finished her education, she endured teaching for a while, and then, in what must have been this moment of, deep artistic inspiration, she revisited an older manuscript.
And that manuscript became Anne of Green Gables, published in 1908.
Right. And the success was just immediate, global, and frankly astonishing for that era.
The scale of her fame, as the sources detail it, is just mind-boggling. Montgomery received fan mail from every corner of the earth.
Every walk of life, too, from schoolboys and college students to missionaries in China, old pioneers in the Australian bush.
And even world leaders like the premiers of Great Britain. It truly struck a universal chord.
Especially, as the sources note, among red-headed people all over the world.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting, though. Despite this immense success, her life changed drastically when she married the Presbyterian minister Ewan MacDonald in 1911.
It did. She moved off the island, settling in Ontario, a huge personal shift.
Yet she never let go of PEI creatively.
Never. She continued to write under her maiden name, Ellen Montgomery, and she made sure every single subsequent novel was firmly rooted back in that island landscape she had left behind.
So this geographical fidelity is really key to understanding the emotional stakes in Anne's House of Dreams.
It's everything. The shift Anne makes in this novel, moving across the island, it really mirrors the deep, almost spiritual tether Montgomery maintained to her birthplace, even when she was physically separated from it.
Okay, let's transition now to the big event that really kickstarts this entire narrative.
Yeah.
Anne Shirley is getting married and leaving Green Gables.
The end of an era.
Totally. She's finally done with teaching geometry, a subject she admits she approached with a trifle vindictively. The whole foundation of her adult life in Avonlea is just shifting under her feet.
And the emotional weight of this departure is so palpable. Montgomery handles it beautifully, not through Anne's eyes, but through Marilla's.
That's such a great point.
We find Marilla downstairs, focusing intently on compounding Blue Plum Preserve, and she hears Anne's laughter from the garret and smiles. But that joy is immediately undercut by this deep sigh.
The classic Marilla moment. Deep emotion just disguised by practical domesticity.
Exactly. Marilla knows that Anne's marriage to Gilbert is a source of profound happiness, but it carries the shadow of future sorrow.
Because she's really leaving this time.
For good. While Anne came back often during her summerside teaching years, now the move to Four Winds Harbour means Anne can only return for biannual visits. It signals a definitive generational change. Marilla is truly letting go.
And the geography of it just reinforces that separation. The destination is Glen St. Mary, part of the Four Winds Harbour community, 60 miles away.
which doesn't sound like much to us today.
No, but back then.
It was a chasm. Gilbert is taking over the practice of his great-uncle, Dr. David Blythe, but that's 60 miles. I mean, Diana Barry just encapsulates it perfectly when she sighs dramatically.
60, it might as well be 600.
Precisely. That distance emphasizes that Anne is not just moving down the road. She is entering a completely new sphere of existence, physically, socially, and emotionally distinct from Avonlea.
And this transition gives Montgomery a chance to critique, or at least affectionately observe, the village Anne is leaving behind.
Especially Avonlea's resistance to what the sources call modern inconveniences.
The telephone.
The telephone. Anne notes its recent grudging addition.
It's a wonderful detail that just captures that small-town inertia, doesn't it? The Avonlea Village Improvement Society, the AVIS, had to fight tooth and nail to push the line through.
They faced enough cold water thrown to discourage any society. It suggests progress in Avonlea is less about genuine enthusiasm and more about this stubborn societal obligation.
I wonder, though, did Anne genuinely welcome this progress? I mean, she expresses relief that the telephone is convenient.
But then immediately worries.
Right. She immediately worries that Avonlea shouldn't be spoiled by becoming too up-to-date and modernish. She longs for it to stay preserved just as it was in the dear old years.
It's nostalgia battling practicality.
It absolutely is. She loves the convenience, but she loves the idea of an unchanging Avonlea more.
And Montgomery, so cleverly, immediately undercuts the whole idea of progress by showing you the reality of modernization in a gossip-driven community.
Listening in. The party line problem.
Yes. Diana recounts the annoyance of receivers going down silently whenever she rings someone up.
And she singles out the worst offender, of course. Mrs. Harmon Andrews.
Oh, of course. She insisted her phone be installed in the kitchen, not for convenience for cooking, but specifically so she could listen in on all the community chatter while, simultaneously keeping an eye on her dinner.
So the technology is new, but human nature and that small-town love of gossip, it remains ancient.
It's a brilliant way to show that no matter what external improvements you make, the core character of the community endures.
Anne sums this up perfectly with her famous dismissal of certain persistent figures. Pies they always were, and pies they always will be. World without end, amen.
That phrase just perfectly encapsulates the inertia of character. Avonlea offers stability and predictability, but it also offers stagnation.
And the wedding itself becomes Anne's public declaration that she is choosing change and freedom over that stagnation.
Yes. Let's talk about that ceremony. It's held in the sunshine of the old orchard.
A simple, private, informal ceremony. This is a very deliberate choice, isn't it? A rejection of those formal, highly public weddings dictated by social figures like Mrs. Harmon Andrews.
It is an assertion of self, but of course it causes major social distress.
Mrs. Rachel Lynde is beside herself.
She worries incessantly that the informal nature won't seem legal, and she frets and frets over the judgment of Mrs. Harmon Andrews.
That fear of external judgment is always the great pressure in Avonlea, and by choosing the orchard, Anne is symbolically shedding that pressure.
She is. And the sources really emphasize the atmosphere, which is truly consecrated by nature, not by society. A bird sings sweetly from a hidden bough during the vows.
Which is such a lovely detail.
It is, and it's not just sentimental filler. That moment is immortalized. Paul Irving, who is like a son to Anne, later writes a lyric about that exact bird song in his first volume of verse.
So the moment isn't just personal, it becomes artistic inspiration. It sticks with them forever.
Exactly. So they leave that predictability behind, and they arrive at the House of Dreams.
And what a stunning visual contrast to the, the gray-green familiarity of Green Gables.
Yeah.
What do the sources tell us about that initial impression of their new home?
Anne's description is so lyrical. The little white house is described as looking like a creamy seashell stranded on the harbor shore.
Wow.
It's sheltered by a cloudy firwood where the wind makes these haunting, almost musical sounds, and the lane is lined with stately Lombardy poplars standing in stately purple silhouette. It's a place of romance, of poetry, and a touch of the wild.
So unlike Green Gables, which had a known history of loss and then eventual joy, the House of Dreams already possesses its own rich existing soul.
Yes, and Anne immediately connects with this history through the architecture.
Through the window.
Specifically through the windows. She discovers two crucial views that define the house's character. There is a dormer that overlooks the light and the sandbar, which instantly makes her, quote, Keats, the magic casement opening on the foam.
It's a window onto the poetic ideal, the romantic sea.
It is. And the second window offers a view of a harvest-hued valley, leading her to feel this profound kinship with Miss Elizabeth Russell, who once lived there.
That kinship is so central. It emphasizes that her arrival is not just moving into a new building.
No, she is joining an existing, beautiful tradition of dreamers and poets who previously inhabited that space. It is a home built not just of wood and stone, but of hopes and history.
It's her castle in Spain, finally translated into a tangible, lovable little house at Four Winds Harbour, ready for whatever adventures are ahead.
And those adventures immediately begin with the people.
So Anne has settled into her house of dreams, but now she needs to navigate the social landscape.
Which is very different from Avonlea.
And the community Anne and Gilbert join is immediately defined by two crucial, eccentric, and wonderfully detailed characters. Captain Jim and Miss Cornelia Bryant. They are the twin philosophical guides to Four Winds.
And Captain Jim provides the single most important concept Anne absorbs from this new community.
The definition of who belongs.
Right. He divides people into two groups, the race that knows Joseph and the race that don't.
This concept is just incredibly powerful, and Anne immediately connects it back to her childhood term, kindred spirits. So let's dissect what Captain Jim actually means by that.
He describes the race that knows Joseph as those who see eye to eye, who share ideas, who possess the same taste in jokes, and most importantly, possess a similar spirit.
The salt of the earth, he calls them.
Exactly. It's a definition based not on geography or status or even education, but on a shared soul. It's this immediate, intuitive bond.
Then Captain Jim himself is the absolute epitome of this kind of soul. He's the lighthouse keeper, described as rugged, homely.
Spare jaws and a square brow, showing the passage of hardship.
But the sources highlight that his spirit, shining through that rough exterior, entirely beautifies him in Anne's eyes.
His history is just so expansive, it truly sets him apart from the predictable agrarian lives of Avonlea. He has traveled the world, accumulating tales of mutinies, skirmishes with Malay pirates.
He dealt with political prisoners in South Africa, was marooned on desert islands, survived a tiger on board a ship, and endured shipwrecks. I mean, the man is a living legend.
He really is. These aren't just tall tales. They are the foundation of his wisdom and his gentle philosophy.
Tell us more about his character through that specific anecdote about the dog, because that one really reveals so much.
It reveals his profound, unselfish nature. He had just returned with a 2-pound steak, looking forward to a spanking good dinner after a hard day.
And then a stray shows up.
A poor, stray, hungry dog with a sore foot shows up looking for lodging. And Captain Jim realizes the dog needs help more than he needs dinner, so he gives the dog the entire raw steak.
And he has nothing else the dog would care for.
Nothing. So he has a scanty dinner of potatoes and point, implying he just pointed to where the meat should have been. But he sleeps wonderfully.
It reinforces his whole philosophical outlook on life, his habit of enjoying things.
Yes, he enjoys things chronically, even the disagreeable ones. When Anne asks about his invariable cheerfulness, he explains his logic. The worse things are, the sooner they will stop.
It's a very practical kind of optimism.
It is. For example, when rheumatism grips him, he reasons, the more pain, the sooner the pain will be over. He finds a perverse, yet practical optimism in suffering. It's a very stoic philosophy, just dressed up in maritime dialect.
And politically, he's a grit, a liberal. But the source material notes he rarely speaks of it. Maybe because he views life's trials as temporary, but political bickering is endless.
That's a great way to put it. It suggests a moderation that contrasts so sharply with the fanaticism we see elsewhere.
And speaking of companions, we have to discuss the first mate.
The gorgeous beastie of an orange-colored cat.
Who Captain Jim rescued after those thoughtless summer residents, the worst kind of temporary neighbor, had left the kitten behind to starve or freeze.
Right, caught in a tree by his ribbon collar. And Captain Jim's assessment of cats versus dogs is just brilliant and nuanced.
He acknowledges that dogs are more lovable because they have no devil in them.
But he finds cats more interesting precisely because they possess a spice of devilment. It shows his preference for complex, slightly challenging characters, which is perhaps why he connects so well with humans like Miss Cornelia.
All right, let's pivot to Miss Cornelia Bryant, the other defining character. She is the perfect counterpoint to Captain Jim's gentle wisdom.
She is. She looks physically approachable, round, pink and white face, jolly brown eyes, but she holds this unwavering, staunch philosophy of male inadequacy.
She is an inveterate man-hater, though she's also a benevolent organizer of the community.
And she doesn't claim to hate men, but she just sort of despises them.
She only exempts Captain Jim and Gilbert's great-uncle, old Dr. Dave Blythe, from this universal dismissal.
Which suggests her disdain is rooted in observed behavior and competence, not just generalized misanthropy.
And her strong opinions don't stop at gender. They extend to religion. She's an uncompromising Presbyterian with a holy horror of Methodists.
This is such a beautiful example of small-town, often humorous, prejudice. Yet her pragmatism breaks through even her dogma.
The story about old Simon Bentley.
Yes. She recounts how a drunken former resident could pray beautifully. She says, "I never heard anyone make more beautiful prayers than old Simon Bentley, who was always drunk or hoping to be, and the drunker he was, the better he prayed." She admires talent, even if it comes from a source she socially condemns.
And when Anne teasingly asks if she doesn't think Methodists go to heaven, Miss Cornelia gives the perfect, religiously snobbish answer.
She does. She states that determining who goes to heaven is in higher hands than ours, but immediately follows with the social reality. But I ain't going to associate with them on earth, whatever I may have to do in heaven.
It's hilarious because it perfectly captures the contradiction between theological acceptance and social exclusion.
It does. And her charity is highly targeted and, well, judgmental. We find her making the 8th baby dress for Mrs. Fred Proctor, whom she deems a martyr, married to a wicked, fascinating man who neglects his family.
She does not mince words. She says Fred Proctor stopped being fascinating and just kept on being wicked after marriage.
So she focuses her charity on those she deems genuinely deserving martyrs. Her compassion is fierce, but her judgment is sharper.
And her political views are just as strong. She's an early, though cynical, proponent of women's suffrage.
She believes women will only get the vote when men realize they've made an irreversible mess of the world and have no choice but to shoulder their troubles over on us.
It's not an argument for equality. It's an argument for women taking over because men have proven incompetent.
Exactly. And this brings us to Marshall Elliott, her future husband, who defines his own character through his politics. When Anne first meets him, he has this incredible, almost mythical appearance.
He is tall and fine-looking, but he has this massive, crinkly brown beard that flows nearly to his knees, and equally thick, wavy brown hair. The sources call him a dime museum freak.
And the beard is the result of a political vow. 15 years earlier, during a bitter general election, Marshall vowed not to shave or cut his hair until the Grits, the Liberals, won.
Yeah, and the length of the beard demonstrates his long-suffering political loyalty, 18 years in total, because the Liberals didn't gain power for nearly 2 decades.
And the moment the victory is confirmed via phone call, that same newfangled technology Avonlea was hesitant about, Marshall doesn't cheer or shout.
No. Instead, he goes straight down the street, hammers on the barbershop door, and wakes the poor barber in the middle of the night to shave and cut off 18 years of dedication.
It's an almost absurd illustration of how seriously these communities take their loyalties and vows, even physical ones. The juxtaposition of Captain Jim's gentle soul and Miss Cornelia's acerbic pragmatism defines the rich tapestry of Four Winds Harbour.
And it sets the perfect, deeply characterized stage for the high drama that is about to unfold with Leslie Moore.
Okay, so now we come to the emotional and ethical centerpiece of the entire novel, Leslie Moore.
Anne first saw her driving those snow-white geese, a stunning, almost mythological figure with burnished hair, the hue of ripe wheat, star-like blue eyes, and wearing blood-red poppies at her belt.
But Anne sensed an immediate, veiled hostility, a deep resentment shadowing that beauty.
And her initial impression was spot on, because Leslie's life has been a compounding series of tragedies. Miss Cornelia unveils this traumatic history to Anne.
And Leslie is only 28 when Anne meets her, but she's already been married for 12 years and has endured just immense suffering.
Let's slow down and process this sequence of events, because the pace of the tragedy is almost overwhelming. Her father, Frank West, was clever but shiftless, prone to melancholy.
And the trauma began so early. At age 12, Leslie witnessed her younger brother Kenneth killed instantly by a wagon wheel in the barn. She saw the wheel go right over his body.
To experience that kind of sudden, violent loss at such a young, formative age, it must have scarred her ability to trust stability and happiness forever.
You'd think so. And just 2 years later, at age 14, the trauma compounds when her melancholy father, Frank, hangs himself in the parlor on the anniversary of his wedding day.
And Leslie, singing innocently as she went in with fresh flowers for the vases, was the one who found him.
It's an almost unbearable sequence of events. The emotional scaffolding of her life was destroyed, one beam after another. What's fascinating is how Montgomery uses these moments of intense darkness in a novel generally known for its lightness.
It proves that deep happiness and profound sorrow often coexist in the most powerful human stories.
It does, and this sets the stage for the third and perhaps most defining tragedy,
Yeah.
the forced marriage.
She was only 16 and forced to marry Dick Moore. Why the coercion?
Her mother, Rose Elliott, described by Miss Cornelia as lazy, selfish, and whining, was threatened with foreclosure on the farm mortgage by Dick's father, Abner.
So Leslie was given a choice: marry Dick or lose the family home and subject her mother to hardship.
And Leslie chose the sacrifice. She felt she was attending her own funeral, but she did it out of loyalty to her mother, even though Rose was smiling as a basket of chips after the marriage secured her future.
This highlights Leslie's tragic flaw: her intense, misplaced sense of duty and self-sacrifice. She gave up her life for a mother who didn't seem entirely worthy of that sacrifice.
And that sacrifice was immediately followed by a bizarre twist of fate that sealed her doom. Dick Moore sailed away on the Four Sisters.
And the ship was lost.
Lost. But a year later, Captain Jim finds a man in Havana who is physically Dick, but completely brain damaged and has lost his memory. The man they called George Moore is, in fact, Dick's cousin, who resembled him closely.
So, for 11 years, Leslie has been caring for George, believing him to be her brain-damaged husband, a living death.
She is tied to this man who is like a child, occasionally fractious, but mostly vacant and helpless. She is poor, she can't leave, and her life is completely defined by this caregiving role.
And this living death environment is what leads directly to the core ethical conflict, the famous great disagreement between Anne and Gilbert.
Right. While treating carbuncles on Dick's neck, Gilbert seizes the opportunity to examine the scars on his head.
This is a crucial moment. Gilbert identifies that the head trauma might be surgically curable. This medical possibility rips a massive hole in the status quo.
And it forces Anne and Gilbert into a debate over duty versus compassion.
Gilbert frames his argument in terms of professional and moral obligation. His stance is immovable. A doctor is duty-bound to restore a patient's health and sanity if there is any hope of success.
And he anchors this position with that powerful theological claim, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free."
That sounds noble, but to your earlier point, it also sounds potentially incredibly cruel. Gilbert is essentially saying, my professional oath requires me to potentially bring back the man Leslie hated, thus destroying her miserable yet stable life.
That is Anne's exact furious response. She cries out, "Gilbert Blythe, you shall not do any such thing."
Her argument is purely based on human compassion.
It is. Life as Dick's nurse is difficult, but life as Dick's wife, which she despised, is infinitely worse. She argues the cure would be inhuman cruelty, and that Gilbert has no right to put such a responsibility on her.
She attempts to sway him using authority and emotion. She appeals to his great-uncle, Dr. Dave, and Captain Jim's personal feelings for Leslie.
And Dr. Daves, who represents the old guard, he backs Anne. He's prejudiced against what he calls newfangled notions of cutting and carving, and advises Gilbert to leave well enough alone.
So Dr. Dave views the situation primarily through Leslie's emotional suffering, prioritizing comfort over potential truth. Anne must be ready to declare victory.
She is, but doesn't Montgomery imply that by choosing compassion over truth, Anne is being fundamentally patronizing? She's deciding that Leslie is too fragile to handle the potential cost of freedom.
That is the deeper intellectual challenge here, isn't it? Anne is trying to sustain a comfortable lie for Leslie's emotional ease.
She is. But Gilbert sticks stubbornly to his conviction about duty. And this is where Captain Jim, the moral compass of Four Winds, steps in.
And Anne hopes Captain Jim, who loves Leslie so deeply, will side with compassion.
But he sides decisively with Gilbert, offering that absolutely crucial distinction.
He cuts through the emotional noise of the marriage debate and the medical duty.
He does. He affirms Gilbert's choice, stating, "It ain't our feelings we have to steer by through life. There's only the one safe compass, what it's right to do."
So by siding with Gilbert, he affirms the intrinsic value of moral duty and painful truth over comfortable, subjective emotion.
The decision is made. Leslie is told she agrees to the surgery borrowing the money from Captain Jim, who takes a mortgage but intends to forgive the debt upon his death.
It's a gift from a dead man.
It is, and the stage is set for a professional intervention that promises pain but leads to utter freedom.
And here is the ultimate dramatic irony. the twist that Montgomery delivers to reward Gilbert's painful choice.
Leslie writes back to Anne after taking George to Montreal. Initially, Anne is relieved. The surgery found George Moore incurable. But then comes the stunning revelation.
The discovery of an old letter proves that the man Leslie cared for is not Dick Moore at all, but his cousin, George Moore of Nova Scotia.
And Dick Moore had died of yellow fever in Cuba 13 years prior, shortly after sailing away.
This news retrospectively invalidates Leslie's entire sacrifice and decade of suffering. The brain-damaged man was never her husband, and she was never legally bound to him.
The emotional relief is just enormous, but it's complex. Leslie admits she feels unwomanly for having loved Owen Ford while believing she was married.
But she also confesses something beautiful. She missed George, whom she loved, just as I would have been fond of a helpless child.
Right. Her decade of care was rooted in genuine human affection for a dependent, not marital duty for a hated man.
And George Moore receives his own happy ending. Restored to his original home, he returns to sea and is engaged to a girl who had patiently waited for him while he was missing.
So Gilbert's commitment to the painful truth, validated by Captain Joe's moral compass, accidentally paved the way for Leslie's total freedom, a freedom that inaction, or even Anne's compassion, could never have delivered.
So, as the tragic uncertainty surrounding Leslie begins to clear, a new figure enters the orbit of the House of Dreams, Owen Ford.
A writer, and significantly, the grandson of the house's original builder, John Selwyn. He arrives seeking quiet and inspiration for his elusive, great Canadian novel.
His arrival represents not just a new character, but a fresh creative energy that is desperately needed after the high emotional drama of Leslie's situation.
It is, and Anne, ever the enthusiastic organizer, immediately spots the collaborative potential. She recognizes Owen's talent and Captain Jim's untapped store of true-life adventure.
So she introduces the two, feeling Owen might be the one to finally turn the old man's simple, misspelled record, what Captain Jim called his life book, into a true narrative.
And Owen is instantly captivated. He realizes he has found the soul of the book in Captain Jim. The old man's stories are phenomenal.
Being marooned, the tiger on board, and that particularly humorous anecdote about the man who got a fishing hook stuck through his nose and had to be driven 35 miles to a doctor.
These tales encompass both horror and humor, and they absolutely thrill Owen.
And Captain Jim feels this creative partnership is fated, doesn't he? He says the book couldn't be read till the right man come.
It creates this beautiful chain of succession and literary loyalty, linking Owen directly back to Captain Jim's dearest friend, the schoolmaster John Selwyn.
Captain Jim also insists that Owen use a story of his lost love, Margaret, as the essential thread of romance to weave the tales together.
He wants her name preserved and remembered, ensuring her existence is not forgotten. And Leslie, now free and radiant, even models the idyllic concluding chapter of the book.
And while they're all focused on this literary endeavor, the inevitable occurs, the emergence of a deep romance between Owen Ford and Leslie Moore.
Anne is initially surprised, but the change in Leslie has been profound. She has truly thawed from her shell.
She shed that cold, sullen exterior she wore during her years of forced duty. This summer, she is vivid, living, and capable of genuine joy.
Enjoying what the sources describe as shameless orgies of lovemaking and adoration with Anne over little Jim, Anne's son.
Owen falls deeply in love and confesses his turmoil to Anne, and he describes the moment of his realization, which is just incredibly visual and poetic.
He tells Anne he saw Leslie on the veranda, drying her long golden hair. The hair fell all about her to her feet in a fountain of living gold.
He said the wind caught it and swirled it around her, making him think of Danae and her cloud.
And in that moment, he realized that he had loved her from the very first time he saw her driving those white geese. The poetry of the moment cemented the reality of his affection.
And the betrothal itself happens in a location that just reinforces the themes of legacy and love. It takes place in Anne's garden.
A garden that was established and builded and consecrated by love by the schoolmaster's bride 60 years earlier. It's not just a patch of soil, it's a living testament to enduring affection. And when Leslie and Owen discuss their favorite flowers, Leslie states a specific preference for the crimson roses over Anne's pink or Gilbert's white roses.
And Owen links this preference to their future, calling the crimson roses love triumphant and perfect.
So the choice suggests Leslie's love, forged in suffering and finally secured by painful truth, is deeper, more vibrant, and more triumphant than the hopeful innocence of pink or the pure duty of white.
It is. And their union is blessed by Captain Jim, the moral and emotional elder of the community. He reads their future in the firelight, predicting happiness for them, for little Jem, and even children that ain't born yet.
He assures them they can weather any storm if they face them together with love and trust.
This official blessing from the man who helped facilitate Leslie's freedom seals their fate as kindred spirits destined for happiness.
So as Anne and Gilbert's time at the House of Dreams reaches its inevitable conclusion, we see the culmination of several key character arcs, and we have to start with the most surprising outcome of all.
The marriage of Miss Cornelia Bryant, the ultimate man-hater, marrying Marshall Elliott, whose beard has finally vanished, thanks to the grit victory.
This is the novel's great comic relief, but it's rooted in Miss Cornelia's staunch pragmatism. She justifies the marriage not out of romantic surrender, but out of necessity and sheer weariness.
It's the perfect cynical anti-romance. Her reasoning is that she is absolutely sick and tired of hired men.
And she reached her breaking point with the current man, Jim Hastings.
Jim Hastings committed the unforgivable sin of domestic incompetence. He upset the churn and spilled an entire large churning of cream.
And then the ultimate insult, he justified his actions by saying it was good for the land.
Miss Cornelia declared that Hastings had finally driven anyone to getting married.
She chose matrimony over the tyranny of incompetent hired labor. It is classic Miss Cornelia. And she maintains her dominance in the arrangement. Marshall is moving to her place.
Of course he is.
And she plans to run the marriage strictly by Gilbert's grandmother's rules for a happy union. Catch him, feed him well, and keep your eye on him.
It's a wonderful comedic conclusion to her arc. But we move now to a more poignant conclusion. Captain Jim's final triumph and farewell.
His collaboration with Owen Ford, The Lifebook of Captain Jim, is published and becomes a genuine bestseller. And this success brings him the proudest day of his life.
He achieved his profound goal of ensuring his lost love, Margaret's name, is not forgotten. His life gains a final, lasting significance that transcends the solitude of the lighthouse.
It does. And his departure is as serene and philosophical as his life. The day after he receives the book, he dies peacefully in his sleep, just after leading it through one last time.
He's found looking out over the Gulf, having passed out in the morning hours, fulfilling his wish to make his long voyage as the rising sun created a great white glory over the water.
It's a death consecrated by artistic achievement and natural beauty, confirming his life was well lived.
And he leaves his beloved first mate in Anne's care.
Which brings up one last piece of superstitious Avonlea logic from Susan, who expresses a fear that the cat might suck the darling's breath.
Which Gilbert, of course, dismisses with a pun, calling it merely a catastrophe.
And the cat, representing the untamable spirit of Captain Jim, remains with the kindred spirits protected from superstition.
And finally, Anne and Gilbert's departure from the House of Dreams. Gilbert makes the practical decision. They must move to the Morgan place at the Glen.
The motivation is purely practical, his growing medical practice and the need for more space for their future family. The little house, consecrated by Anne's bridal moon, the profound joy of little Jem's birth, and the deep grief over the brief day of her lost daughter Joyce, is now, simply put, outgrown.
Anne's grief over leaving is acute. She doesn't just mourn the loss of the physical space, but the potential destruction of its spirit.
She worries that some poor, shiftless, wandering family will rent it and desecrate the house's soul and identity, allowing it to tumble down and decay.
She understands that the value of the house is entirely wrapped up in the memories and the kindred spirits who inhabited it. Her worst fear is that the soul of the house will be violated by vandal tribes.
But Montgomery gives her, and the reader, a final, beautiful consolation, tying all the threads together perfectly. Leslie and Owen Ford announce they will buy the little house from the church trustees.
To use for summer vacation.
Yes, and Anne is just overjoyed.
Yeah.
It means that the House of Dreams will remain protected and consecrated. It remains in the hands of the race that knows Joseph, people who understand the geography of Dreamland and cherish its history.
It ensures its legacy continues, even as Anne and Gilbert move onward to their next, larger chapter at the Glen.
This has been a fascinating journey, and if we look back at the source material, the fundamental insight it offers is a study in profound contrast.
Absolutely. We move from the settled predictability of Avonlea, governed by fixed characters, and Mrs. Harmon Andrews' rigid social expectations,
to Four Winds Harbour. And Four Winds is turbulent, adventurous, full of high drama, ethical challenges, and fiercely loyal individualists like Captain Jim and Miss Cornelia.
And that transition really highlights the philosophy of the race that knows Joseph. True happiness is not found in stability or geography, but in that essential human connection, finding those few kindred spirits who share your essential view of the world.
It's a definition of belonging based on soul, not on proximity.
We also tracked massive character transformations, proving that freedom often demands confronting reality head-on. Leslie, Marshall Elliott, even Miss Cornelia.
They all found resolution or freedom only after shattering their old vows or fixed ways of life. Leslie's complete fulfillment was unlocked by that painful dose of the truth that Gilbert insisted upon.
And that brings us back to the most critical intellectual takeaway. We watched Gilbert embrace his professional duty even when it directly threatened his marriage and personal happiness, guided by the belief that the truth shall make you free.
And this is the final, provocative thought we want to leave you with, something for you to mull or explore on your own that builds on this source material.
We saw that moral duty, even when potentially destructive, served as the catalyst for ultimate freedom.
So when you face a moment of profound moral ambiguity, a crossroad between professional duty or moral obligation, and profound human compassion, which is the better guide.
When does the truth, no matter how initially agonizing, become the only path to genuine freedom for everyone involved?
Think about that moral compass. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the architecture of change, character, and conscience.
We'll see you next time.